Welcome back to Talk Devils podcast, brought to you by talkdevils.co.uk, the number one independent Manchester United podcast. This is our Friday show. I'm joined by former Manchester United player Lee Lawrence. We are missing Phil here today, but don't worry, guys. We do have a score prediction in for the end of the show, so we will have that very important part of the show here this evening. We're here today to talk all things Manchester United. We're going to review briefly the Manchester Derby and just get Lee's perspective on that performance. We're also going to review the Ammonia and game last night. We're going to briefly talk about Everton this weekend as well. Also, the big talking point we've seen the last 24 hours is the Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial partnership. We're going to chat about that. And then also something very fun at the end of the podcast. Myself and Lee are going to compare the 1999 treble winning team versus the double winning team in 2008. So we're going to be chatting about them two teams at the end as well. We're going to come to a conclusion which team was better. We're going to look at the pros and the cons of both of them teams as well. So we will be chatting about all that towards the end of the podcast. So guys, do smash like the video, hit that subscribe button. As always, we do appreciate your support. Lee, last Friday we were cautiously optimistic going into the derby. And I think that's the best phrase we can use is cautious optimism. Obviously, look, didn't go our way. We lost 6-3. What are your thoughts on just the overall result and the performance last Sunday in the derby?
Not a massive surprise, mate. I think if we all stay true to ourselves, and put things in perspective where we are really on the matter, then I don't think anyone would truly say that we thought we was going to turn City over. I mean, the phenomenon.
Apart from myself last week.
Pardon?
When you look at the score predictions last week, apart from myself.
They're a phenomenal side without a striker, and they've signed, for me, arguably the best striker in the world at the minute, and that's by a long stretch. He's basically Haaland, obviously who I'm on about. He's unplayable. If I was playing centre back, I think I've never done this in my entire career, but I think I would have been looking at pulling an injury before the start. He's that good. He's unplayable. So I wasn't shocked at the defeat. I was probably a bit shocked at the score. The score it ended up. It could have been more than 6 if we're being honest. I think we was lucky probably to get 3 goals. They went in 4-0 at half time, and I know it's a derby, but if you're up 4 goals at half time, it is quite easy to take your foot off the pedal a little bit, and I think that's what City did. And I think the scoreline probably was going to paper over a few cracks with us getting 3 goals. I think if City would have kept on it for like they did in the first half, I think we would have struggled really. Apart from the Anthony goal, which was a phenomenal finish, I've got to put that in. He took his goal really well. But it's one of them. I've seen a lot of people getting irate about it and putting down his on and already calling for the manager's head and things like that. Ridiculous, really. We know where we are. We know we're work in progress. We know things don't happen overnight. We move on. We move on, and hopefully the next time we play them, we learn from the mistakes that we made, and obviously the team and the manager, we take that on board and hopefully give them a better game.
Look, I think perspective is key here, especially with this result. I think, apart from myself, who was I was optimistic saying a 2-1 win, but realistically, they're the best football team in the world. I know Real Madrid won the Champions League last season, but that came down to experience. But if you look at just pure footballing team, Manchester City are the best team in the world. I don't care what anyone says. If you look at just the last couple of years and their points totals every season and what they do, they're just an unbelievable team. That they added Erling Haaland to that. So look, he's a machine. And it was always going to be hard coming last weekend. It was always going to be a tough ask. I know, look, historically in the last couple of years, we've had a brilliant, record at the Etihad. But unfortunately, look, that came to an end on Sunday. I think, look, for me, I've seen people call for the manager's head after the game. And I'm going to be honest, I really don't agree with that. The only thing I would say is the starting 11 that we did put out, I thought was slightly naive going to the Etihad. playing 2 number 10s in midfield against that midfield. I thought that was slightly naive. Like I said on this podcast last week, I thought he should have went with 2 holding midfielders in that against City, because where we got caught was in the midfield battle. There was so many gaps, and I said last week you should play Casemiro and McTominay in there, just for the fact that it'll cover them spaces and it'll potentially negate some of their attacking threat. And that's like, look, I think, look, hindsight's a beautiful thing. Even if we'd done that, we probably still lost the game anyway. But I think, just in my opinion, if I look at the starting 11, and I look at playing Bruno and Eriksen against the midfield of Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, and then you Phil Foden drifted inside into that midfield as well, and they create them overloads. I think it was slightly just. I know that midfield three done well in home games against Liverpool and Arsenal, where look, it's one of them where we can use the crowd to our advantage, and they're Liverpool's midfield is nowhere near Man City's, and neither is Arsenal's. But if you look at the Man City's quality in midfield, I just thought, could it people say Ten Hag started pragmatically? I don't think he did, to be quite honest. I think he thought he could match City in midfield with Bruno and Eriksen and McTominay, and it was to his detriment. But again, I'm not going to sit here and criticize Ten Hag for having a pair of balls and actually going out and try to match City in midfield. I'm not going to criticize him for that, because look, not many managers do that. But just in my own personal opinion, I think especially in the derby, I thought personally myself, maybe go a bit more pragmatic in midfield to try, I suppose, keep City out for as long as we can, and in that case then grow into the game, but unfortunately it wasn't to be, and look, we didn't pick up the points.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, mate, but like I say, he's had some with the team he's been putting out, and he's trying to get obviously his best 11, and like we've said on the podcast before, we've been crying out for a settled team instead of changes all the time. And like I said, the team, what he's been putting out this year, it's been more or less the same starting 11, apart from injuries and obviously forced substitutions and things like that. So I'm quite happy that he kept it that way. The point with Casemiro, it's a debate. Is it? Does he get a run of games now? I've not been massively impressed up to now with him, but we all know what qualities he's got, and the pedigree he comes from. Does he start on Sunday? For me, he's got to be pushing there, because if he's not getting minutes on the field and he's not getting into a settled starting 11, then he could struggle, and we don't want to be paying so much money for a world-class player who's going to struggle to fit in. So I think he's gonna need a run of games.
Yeah, I think Casemiro definitely needs a run of games. I think, look, if you look at McTominay playing in the last couple of games, McTominay was in form. You couldn't have dropped McTominay. I think McTominay, did warrant his place in the team, 100%. I think, he warranted his place. So we can't knock Ten Hag for keeping a player in who's in form. We can't knock that. I just think if you look at me, either one of Fernandes and Eriksen in that particular situation, 100% we could have done without one of them, just in that first half. Personally, I thought maybe Fernandes, if you're dropping anyone, it should have been Fernandes that you should drop in that situation. Just looking at, in terms of the way City play, in terms of the gaps that may be left in midfield. I said this on the podcast last week. Personally, I would have went to the three of Casemiro, McTominay and Eriksen, and just to be a bit more disciplined, especially in the first half / 60 minutes. But I absolutely agree with you, in terms of the way Everton are going to play, and I know we'll touch on the opposition a bit more later on the show, but I think Casemiro should start, because sooner rather than later, look, we paid 60 million for him. He's a world-class midfielder. I think we have to bring him into the team. Not only just for the fact that he needs games, but if you look at, I think, where defense has been good in certain stages this season, there's still slight vulnerability there. Especially now with Varane being potentially out for a little while, Maguire is out. So, I think to give this, I suppose, defense a bit more protection, Casemiro needs to play. And also, look, we need leaders in the team. like, look, McTominay's been good for this length of time that we've had him in the team, and look, what me, you, and Phil did agree on, like collectively in the last couple of weeks, is maybe he's not going to be a first team player every week, Scott McTominay, but what he is a useful squad player. 110%. He's someone who can contribute when called upon. And I think, look, if we're being realistic about it, if we want to really progress, like Casemiro has to start in midfield every week. Like in this situation, you can't not play him, and especially in the big games with his experience, with his mentality, with the trophies he's won. You can't have a player like that sitting on the bench. Same way, I think, look, at some stage in this season, we're going to have to bring Cristiano in because his experience, his drive, and his will to win. Now, look, I know we'll touch on him in a few minutes, and obviously we're going to chat about the Ammonia game in detail, but like with these experienced players you have in the dressing room, there's stages in the season, there's particular games in the season where you're going to have to play these players to get you over the line in doing difficult situations. And look, I think especially with them two, Casemiro and Cristiano Ronaldo, we're going to have to call upon them sooner rather than later. I think especially with Casemiro, he has to come in immediately, in my opinion.
I think when you're buying players, like I say, with the pedigree they've got and the label they come with, we've got to start and we've got to give them the chance. We can't just do it slowly and let them play a game here and play a game there. They've got to play their way into form. We bought Casemiro, like I say, either to replace McTominay or Fred, or strengthen our squad. But a guy of that caliber has got to be in your starting 11. It should be, if it's one of the first, names on the team sheet every time. And that's why I think it's crucial that he does get a run of games. Let's not do what we did with Donny van der Beek. When he first started pretty poor, then he didn't get a game, then he didn't get another game, then he come back in and didn't come back in. You've got to give him time to adjust to the Premier League and to develop the game. It's a completely different league, La Liga to the Premier League. And it does take some adjustment physically and
yeah, definitely 100%. Look, there is an adjustment period that definitely is there, and look, I think the best way to adjust to the league is play more games. You're not going to adjust the league sitting on the bench and playing 20 minutes, half an hour, every so often. I think, look, you have to start. And I think when you look at the way Everton's midfield play, I think this weekend would be ideally the right one because this would be his type of game to come into. But I do want to touch on last night against Ammonia. Obviously, look, 3-0, 3-2 in the Europa League. We are kind of, I suppose, battling to get the result at the end. But like, what is your overall thoughts on, I suppose, the result at the end of the day? Because I think that's the most important thing, all things considered.
And to be honest, I had to watch it. I had to tape it and watch it. I had my lad's parents' evening yesterday, so I only ended up watching it back up about 9:30, 9. Obviously, I was keeping my eye on the results very slyly while the teachers were talking at parents' evening. But obviously, I seen all the hystericalness on Twitter about we've struggled and it was terrible, and again, like you said, people calling for 10 eggs head, and just I thought, right, watch it on your own and see if we really was that bad. And when you watch it overall, we weren't that bad. You take it over 90 minutes, we was by far the better team, by far the better team, which is obviously expected. We should be the better team. I think if Cristiano had his game head on, then and the chances what we could have put away in that first half, we would have been looking and talking about a completely different game, and a completely different outcome. You just look at the stats. We had 28 shots. You know what I mean? We had, I think it's 74% possession, 714 passes to the 262. What I've seen today, we absolutely, as a footballing team, battered them. But then you've got to look at, should we be conceding 2 goals to a team like this?
I look at 2 goals we conceded, Lee. I think you can put, especially the first goal, down to individual error.
Yeah, Malakia made a cock up. Then it was a massive cock up, and we seemed a little slow getting back to, which was a bit disappointing for me. I'm sure. I don't want to use the word effort again because we used that word a lot last year, and I'm hoping that Ten Hag's going to get the squad away from that, which it looks like he's doing. But it just seems like, to me, we could have got back a little bit more, been a bit cuter, clipped the lads' legs. That was in my day, if you was running back and you look like you was going to concede a goal, the first thing you're doing is getting a yellow card and taking one for the team. So we probably could have been a little bit cuter. But like I say, overall, better team by far. And if we would have took our chances and we would have had our shooting boots on, we would have been talking about a completely different game.
Definitely, look, there's a lot of chances we missed last night. I think Cristiano on another night puts 3 or 4 away in last night. Like I look at some of the other chances we missed, it's like other nights we absolutely blitz them. I think on Old Trafford next week we'll absolutely batter them.
Don't get me wrong. They give Solskjaer a game though, didn't they? You know what I mean? So they've given us a game now. They've given Solskjaer a game. So I think we've probably written them off a little bit more than we should have. Really, they can't be that bad of a team if they're doing that.
Yeah, definitely. And look, they showed that they're clinical in front of goal. Like in that respect, when they got their chances, they took them. In that regard, and like, look, you can't take that away from them. But if I look at like how we didn't take them chances last night, and how we individually, like, if we be honest, we handed them their 2 goals last night.
Yeah.
Like Sancho's decision making, lost the ball. Then Malacia was left like 3v1, 2-3, like 2v1, 3v1 in that situation, and look, ultimately we conceded that goal. Like you look at that, and that's just down to individual error. When I looked at that first goal last night, I literally got flashbacks to the Istanbul game under Solskjaer in lockdown. Remember the away game where we had one player on the halfway line, and then Baban, another player, ran at him, and that's how we conceded. I got flashbacks to that. I think we got overly confident for that set piece, and like I was wondering where in God's name is Casemiro? Like he should be sitting on the halfway line, being the defensive midfielder there if the centre backs are going up.
Yeah. I think Casemiro grew into the game more. I think he had a poor start, if I'm being honest. I watched him fall on his backside a couple of times, and I thought, what's going on here? I think as the game went on, he kind of grew into the game. And going back to our original point, I think that's why he needs his run of games. You know what I mean? But individual errors crossed us massively yesterday, and once we start clearing that out, which we will do, I'm confident in the manager and I'm confident in the team. I think once we start clearing them up, I think sometimes we're a bit too. It's football in general now. Everyone's good just to put the ball in Mole's head and regroup, especially with Malacia. He's like say 1-on-1. Even doubt, get it out and get regrouped and start again. Sometimes we can try overplay and be too cute, and it seems like we get caught out a lot as a club with that.
Yeah, like sometimes I don't get why we don't take that easy option just to get rid of it. We like to make it hard for ourselves, and it's frustrating, but look, at the same time, Ten Hag wants us to play the right way, play out from the back, and there's certain situations where I think some of these players need to be a bit streetwise. Like if they're in trouble, put it out of play, regroup, get your shape back. Unfortunately, not to be, but look, we got the 3 points. I think that's the most important thing, because obviously we have the reverse fixture against Ammonia again next week at Old Trafford. Then following that, we have the Sheriff game at Old Trafford. I'm actually going to that game myself. I'm looking forward to it now. Hopefully, personally, I hope Ronaldo doesn't score against Ammonia and gets a 700 against Sheriff like the week after. Selfishly, that's just a selfish side of me there. I want to be there to witness history, but look, that's me being absolutely selfish. And don't kill me, guys, in the comments, please. Don't absolutely kill me. But look, yeah, I think there's not really much more we have to kind of say on it. Like I know the lads covered it mostly on the reaction show last night. Look, it's 3 points. We move on, and obviously, look, we have a big game in the Premier League this weekend. League against Everton at Goodison Park. They've won the best defensive records in the league. Lampard seems to be slowly but surely getting a tune out of these players, and they're finally, picking up results. And life looks a lot better than it did towards the back end of last season for Lampard and for Everton. And just kind of touch on the opposition first of all before we talk tactics and starting 11s and stuff like that. What have you made of Lampard at Everton this season?
Yeah, a lot better this season. It's like I say, he's finally getting a tune out of him. I won't say I was worried for him because I've never been a massive fan, but as a player, he was a great player. But like I say, they're unbeaten in the last 5. They've won the last 2 games now against West Ham and Southampton. And like you just mentioned, they've got the best defensive record I think in the league. I think they've conceded 7
Yeah.
which I believe is the best in what the Premier League has to offer at the moment. So for us in this game, I think our creativity is key up front. We've got to break quick, catch them on the counter sometimes, and it's going to be tricky to see who's going to start, who's going to actually put in. Because I think that's going to make a hell of a difference as to the outcome of the game. I think we need to put our quick attacking plays up there, against them. Cody at the back and Tarkowski. We need to, for me, Rashford needs to be. Well, I know we'll go into this later anyway, but it's got to be starting. And if Martial's fit with what's happened, which again I know we're going to touch on, it's a no-brainer. He's got to be starting as a number 9.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think if you look at the way this team could potentially set up, I think Rashford, Martial, these are players I think we should be using to exploit Everton at the back. Because one thing I'd say is, like you mentioned, like how maybe Tarkowski and Cody aren't the quickest at the back. One thing I will say is set pieces. I think Lee, I think they're going to be a threat. Like especially if Rafael Varane is out, which he's potentially out for this game.
Yeah.
Harry Maguire, who's actually for all the abuse everyone gives Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire is
good in the air.
he's very good in the air, and especially for defending set pieces, he's brilliant. We're definitely missing Maguire this weekend. It looks like he's going to be out for another week or so. When you look at Everton's threat from set pieces, when you have Tarkowski, Connor Cody, potentially maybe Dominic Calvert-Lewin, players like that. Neil Maupay.
I think Maupay's fit in it to come in to start. So, like I say, he can be a surprise. He can surprise most teams, to be honest, with a decent performance, can't he? But
would you be concerned with their physical threat?
Yeah. I love Martinez. You know that. I think he's a fantastic defender. My type of defender. Probably built the same. Probably the reason why he's probably built the same way as I am, and I'm a defender. You know what I mean? But the threat is going to be massive with the height they've got and the physicality. And you just hit the nail on the head there. Varane's not starting. I know it's touch and go, but I don't think Lindelof, for the size of him, is world class in the air. But that's where I'm going on about our forward thinking players. They've got to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and we not really need to be out of sight before that even becomes a threat with us. So I think, like you say, who he chooses to play as at the attacking end, and they're going to have to perform really well. And if they do, then we don't have to worry too much about the defensive threat. Sorry, their attacking threat with our defence because of the physicality.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, look, when you look at certain other things, I think we have to play our own game here and try, I suppose, really minimise them getting many set pieces and many chances. I think we have to play players who are going to be crisp on the ball, and I think we need to play players who are experienced, because it is a late kickoff on Sunday. It's Goodison Park under the lights. It's going to be bouncing and this is no disrespect to Everton or any other team, but when Man United come to town and it's under the lights, it's every team's cup final. Whether people want to admit that or not, United are the biggest club in the world. When Man United come to town, it's the biggest game for everybody.
Yeah, I think this game, we mentioned it off. I think this game is going to give us a true reflection of where our season's heading at the moment. Like say, City was a disappointment, but did we really expect to win? Ammonia, move on from that. A win's a win. I think if we perform well against Everton and get a comprehensive win against them, it's giving us an indication of how things are moving on, because last season when we was playing Everton, to be honest, most teams, but I would have been really scared that we was going to get turned over at Goodison Park. So I think the team needs to start reassuring the fans with the performances against your likes of your Evertons and your mid-table teams that the signs are looking good, and we can start looking forward.
And I just lost Lee there for a second. You back there, Lee?
Have you got me, mate? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got you there.
Yeah, sorry. Like I said, I think we need to start start looking at these games are definitely winnable and should be winnable, instead of the fans worrying all the time, thinking, well, I know it's only Everton, I know it's always such a thing, but there's a good chance we're going to lose. I think that we've got to, under Ten Hag now, and the team we've built, and the players that we've got, and the squad that we've got, and the depth that we've got in the squad now, we need to start showing a bit of progression against the likes of these teams.
We definitely do. And look, this is where, like, predominantly, if you look at the last couple of years, like under Solskjaer and Rangnick, all these other managers we've had, these are the teams we drop points against. The big games, like the big games, we can go out and get a result. We can do that most of the time. But these games, especially if you look at our record at Goodison Park in the last couple of years, barred the 2 games in lockdown where we absolutely battered them. In the last couple of years, if you talk Goodison Park with fans in the stadium, we've had a very tough time at Goodison Park. So I think, look, I think it'd be a great statement if Eric Ten Hag went there and won, especially like if you look at their current run of form, Everton at the minute, and if you look at how defensively sound they've been, it would be, another step in progression for Eric Ten Hag. And people can talk about it's only Everton. We need to come back and bounce back after like a heavy defeat in the derby, because look, that, like, for the fans, for us, that hurts. Like, fair enough. Again, no disrespect to Ammonia last night. If we lost last night, I said it on Twitter last night, it would be our most embarrassing defeat post Sir Alex Ferguson. It would have been, considering where they finished last season in the Cyprus League and where they are in the league right now, actually, as well. Like I said, it would have been our most embarrassing defeat post Sir Alex. I stand by that. But when you get battered in a derby by one of your biggest rivals, you need to bounce back and show a bit of character after that. And like, even if we won 6-7-0 last night, I don't class that as bouncing back, because we're expected to win that game. Yeah. This is a game here where, look, I think if you look at the odds makers right now, we're favourites to win the game because, look, we've the better team, we've the better players. But historically, we've had a very tough time going to Goodison. So if there's any way for these players to really step up and pump their chest out after a very heavy defeat and a soul-destroying defeat, this is definitely the game to do it in. And again, as you said, Lee, it'd definitely be a good time to show where we actually are as a team, that this team has character to bounce back. Because what we've seen, especially in the last 18 months, is when the going got tough for these players, once they had a heavy defeat, they'd go on and lose 3 or 4 on the bounce. They need to show a bit of progression now and actually come back from a heavy defeat and put some wins on the board, some points on the board, and come back. Like we seen under Sir Alex when we got bet 6-1 by City. We went unbeaten for a long time that season, albeit, look, goal difference happened and we lost the league. But when we got thumped by City that time, we went unbeaten for a long time. We conceded barely any goals. And we actually were a bit pragmatic for a while, but we got results. We need to be like that now. And look, again, I don't care if we go to Goodison Park on Sunday and we have to absolutely grind out a result. And look, let's say if Everton have more chances or whatever, but our talent and our desire wins us the game, then look, 100%, I'm happy about that, because that's showing character when the going gets tough. I just want to see a response, because for too many times after a heavy defeat, we go again on social media and blah blah blah. We will do better next week. I actually want to see us do that now after a heavy defeat. Like, let the performance on the pitch actually do the talking.
Yeah, I think last year when, like, say, it annoyed us all when it was we'll go again and we need to do better. The problem is we didn't have the squad to do better. So it was all that I'm saying it, but we just weren't good enough as a starting 11 or as an overall squad. The difference this season, it's a new manager, new squad. We've spent a lot of money on players which hopefully are going to take us to that next level. Just a word on Anthony. I think. What do you think? How do you think Anthony's doing? I think he's doing okay. I think he can be. Again, keep giving him a run of games. Let him get used to the Premier League. I think he's going to be a good signing, a real good signing for us. On that right. Especially Sancho, for me at the moment, his form's dipping a little bit. What are you thinking about the weekend? Are you thinking of sticking Anthony in and maybe Rashford on the left, or?
Yeah, definitely. I may as well dive straight into the starting 11 predictions, but I will just touch on Sancho just here, like you said, because before the international break, when I seen he didn't get into the squad, I thought, look at like him getting crucial goals. I thought he deserved to get in the team, the England squad. When you looked at Jared Bowen and players like that underperforming, but Jadon Sancho's confidence looks really shot at the minute. He's not taking players on. He's making all the wrong decisions. He seems to be kind of stuck. I think mentally right now, Jadon Sancho is in his own head at the minute. I think he's his actually own biggest enemy here. In this situation, when look at the way he's playing. If I look at other players in the similar positions, if I look at Anthony at the minute, like he's come in, yes, like look, there's times he loses the ball, but he's not afraid to take a player on. He's not afraid.
What I like about him, he's got the right attitude. It looks like when
Yeah.
he's on the pitch, if he does lose the ball, he doesn't put his head down and put his arms out and start sulking. He runs back and tries to get that ball back. You can see that he's got so much talent. The only thing what disappoints me a little bit with him, what I'd like to see him do more is take a man on the outside. I know he's left-footed and he's always cutting in, but he's truly got the pace and the trick of it to get around the man too. You know what I mean? So I think if he can develop that part of his game, we could have a real player on our hands. But like I said, we bought Casemiro, we brought Anthony in, we bought Martinez in. Obviously Sancho the year before, but we're buying players what are supposed to be top quality, world class players. So that was my point before. We've got the squad now to do it. Hopefully Ten Hag keeps them playing on the field, even if this is the other thing with Sancho too. This is why I asked you about it, because we know what he can do when he's on form. He's a phenomenal winger. You know what I mean? Do you drop him because his confidence looks shot, or do you keep him in a team, a settled 11, and start getting him used to playing with the players around him, and hopefully that confidence comes back? Because, like I say, on his day, and up to a couple of games ago, he was playing really well. So that's why I asked. It's an hard one. It's an hard one to figure out.
I just look at what we need, and I think we need players to be a bit more direct. In certain games, I think you can play Sancho, and look, realistically, I think Rashford's further in his development where Sancho is. Like in terms of Rashford's more experience in the Premier League. I think if you look at partnerships, I'm talking about link up play and partnerships. If I look at the forward positions right now, my front three would be Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford. Reason why I have Rashford in there over Sancho is he takes players on more. He's quicker. And he has a relationship with Martial.
Yeah, that was so evident to see when they scored that goal the other day. They both looked like they was really enjoying playing together, didn't they? And it's been a while since I've seen Rashford smile on a football pitch, like we said last year. He just looked down and out and miserable. Them two, they formed a little partnership now. They've known each other a long time. They've both been at the club with each other for a long time. Get them two firing on all cylinders, and hopefully they'll prove a lot of the stuff what we said about them last year. They'll prove me, Andrew, and Phil wrong.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And when I looked at them two last night and looked at their movement, their one-touch passing, and their intricate runs around each other, it really reminded me when the 1920 season when Solskjaer had that front three of Dan James, Rashford, and Martial, and how they used to all interchange positions. Albeit like Dan James isn't at the club now, but we've a better player in Anthony there on the right-hand side. I think we can have that same type of front three. Obviously, we had another player as well on the right who was very good as well. But when I look at the partnerships and I look at players who know each other's game and the players that break down teams, especially in a low block, I think Marcus Rashford and Martial have to play together. Yeah. Because the thing about it is, and this is where I love the 5 substitute rule right now, because we've different players who can play different positions against different setups. Like let's say you do have a Rashford and Martial. If Rashford playing on the left, Martial up top, but then you have Anthony to cut in on the right hand side, and Dalot to bomb past them. Or essentially, like at the start of the season, before we had Anthony, you had Sancho and Dalot linking up well on the right hand side. Like I think Sancho can be that player who can play on the right and the left. I just look at him on the left at the minute. Like if he doesn't have the confidence to beat a man and kind of come in field and do his flicks and tricks and whatever, I'd like him to get back out into the right-hand side and maybe in a few of these Europa League games and just simplify his game, not to try to overdo it. Maybe get back out to your natural position out on the right and get back to basics. I just look at him on the left. I just think Marcus is way better out on that left-hand side. And I just look at his pace, his power, and it's just his relationship with Martial, and I just look at that and look at the way teams play against us, especially in that low block. I think them two will be the key to unleashing that as well. As well as that, when you have Rashford in the team and he makes them direct runs, it gives Bruno that opportunity to play that pass over the top, or like the pass he played against Arsenal, because he knows Rashford's going to run in behind, whereas Sancho doesn't run in behind. Sancho comes to feet, which, yeah, that does drag the right back out, but you've no one running in to make that run. Whereas Martial drops in, and then Bruno plays that ball over the top to Rashford because he's gone. Do you know what I mean? So that's where I look at the partnerships, and I look at the way players move and players have these relationships. I just think Sancho would be much better off out on the right hand side. Ultimately, like, this is where Ten Hag might be stuck, because if Rashford's going to play on that left hand side, then Sancho has to go up against the new 90 million signing, and like that's where he's in a bit of bother. But like, you look at Sancho, could he maybe play number 10? Do you know what I mean? Could he maybe play that role Bruno plays, a second striker role? Do you know, could he maybe play there? Could he, like, we know he can play in the right. If Sancho maybe can simplify his game and show a bit of flexibility, he may actually, get into the team. But I think what he just needs to do right now, this moment, rather than, get back into form, is just get back to basics. Just start doing the basics again and play yourself back into form by doing that. And then once you're doing the basics right, then you can do your flicks, your tricks, step overs, all that crack.
I think the key to every one of the players we've just mentioned is consistency, innit? Because we could, in a couple of weeks, Rashford's form might drop, like it's been up and down. Martial might start 2 or 3 games, and we know he can blow out a gas. So I think no matter who or what we're talking about or which player we're talking about, they've got to get a level of consistency in the performance. And until they can get that level, we're going to be probably talking about, should they be in here, should they not be in there. Excuse me, let me sort me down about 2 seconds.
Yeah, no worries. Just out there, we'll come to, whilst Lee is sorting out the dog there, let's come to Wayne's comment. Wayne says, "Even lads, hope you're both well. Hope you're well, Wayne." Yeah, look, as I was saying there, guys, look, just in my opinion, I just think we look at players being more direct. I think Marcus will be the one. Especially like if you look the way Martial drops into the field, brings players into play, gets that ball to Bruno, and then there's a gap there. Player dragged out of position. I just think Marcus is better suited to that left hand side than Jadon. I just think Jadon will be better on the right. But yeah, Lee is back there now.
Guys, the dog was going crazy.
No worries at all. But you mentioned the front three, so look, I think we both agree. We're going to talk about the rest of the 11 now in a minute, but are you in agreement just for Everton on Sunday? You'd go Anthony on the right, Martial up top, and Rashford on the left?
Yes, mate. That's what I've got. If Martial's fit enough to play a full 90, which fingers crossed he is, obviously he showed the form in pre-season, which got us all thinking again. Could he spark another season where it shows his potential? Because we know he's got the most potential in the world to be a top class striker. Again. He's come back.
Without staying fit, isn't it, Lee? Because anytime he gets into form, a big run of form, and he shows his talent, he shows he can be a real. Like, I'll be honest, if you look at the 1920 season and other seasons before that, when he's in form, he shows he can be a proper world class talent. As a striker.
I think all you need to do is listen to
fit.
Yeah, listen to what you like to see Rashford and people talk about him around the club, and they all say he's such an important player. But he's got to stay fit. And when he is fit, he's got to show the level of consistency, which we all know he's got. He come on the other day. Was it his first, second touch, whatever?
Yeah.
Cracking strike back in the net. He watched him in pre-season. They were bouncing balls off him. He was holding the ball up well. He's spinning. He was quick. He was strong. He was finishing well. And he's got it in his locker. He's got it all day long. It just needs a run of games, and he needs to, when he's got that run of games, be playing consistently well, and that will bring his confidence out, and hopefully we'll get to see a top class number 9, which we all know he can be.
Yeah, definitely. And look, thing about it is with him is he needs a run of form, and he needs to have look. People talked about players needing unlocking. I think Ten Hag is the perfect manager for Anthony Martial to thrive. I think if you look at Jose Mourinho, just like if you look at Martial's time at the club, Jose probably wasn't the right manager for him. Louis van Gaal definitely was, in terms of the way he plays. Solskjaer, whether people want to admit it or not, he got the best out of Martial. He got the absolute best out of him. But like, I think Ten Hag can bring him up to a new level, simply because like he's a very good coach. He has a proven track record of improving players, and he works with them on an individual basis. I just think he can, if he can stay fit, he can reach a new height this season. Whereas if you go back on a podcast a couple of months ago, me, you, Phil, and Reese were all sitting there.
Finished.
We're like,
Yeah,
no way.
Massive.
We're like,
I thought there's no way, apart from when pre-season come along, I'd have even played him in pre-season. If I'm being honest, he wouldn't have got a game for me in pre-season. But like I've said on many a times, when we do this, we're not like fans. A lot of fans on Twitter and your social media accounts kill a player because they want to kill them and they don't want them to get better, and they'd love to put that player down. I think the difference with proper supporters is, we'll be truthful and we'll say he's not on form and we don't think he's going to be, but I'm overjoyed when someone proves me wrong, especially if they're a United player. You know what I mean? I'm absolutely overjoyed with it. Like I said last season, I'd like nothing better than Maguire to come good, and prove us wrong, because he seems like a cracking lad. And we know, again, he's another guy, he's got it in his locker. He just had a couple of bad seasons, but fingers crossed Martial gets a run of games and a run of form. And I'd like nothing better to eat humble pie and say, do you know what? I was talking a load of shite last season, and he's a fantastic number 9. What was I thinking? You know what I mean?
I look at that. I love when a player, I say, right, I love when I say this player isn't good enough, or I love when I say, do you know what? I don't think he's the player to bring us forward. I love when them type of players prove me wrong, because what that does, it benefits the football club you love, and it means you're getting results.
Yeah, well,
that's what it is at the end of the day.
I think a massive example of it is Delors. I mean, there's no one absolutely battered Delors last season, but me, I was obviously being a fullback myself, and we've mentioned it a few times. I was saying, what's he doing at the club? What's he doing in the Premier League? And you look now, he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet. As he started, I think he started every game. Obviously, without Wan-Bissaka's injured, we know that. But even if he weren't, I don't think he would have got a game, or he would have got minutes, because it just seems like a completely transformed player under Ten Hag. And his game, everything about his game's changed. Even his defending's gone a lot better. We knew he could attack, but he's in possession. He can create some fantastic passes. He looks quick. He looks stronger. And again, for me, fantastic, because I absolutely ruined him. And for someone to turn my opinion around in how many games have we played now? Is it seven games we played this season? It's turned my. It's for me, it's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And I just hope, just in reference to Martial, that he can stay fit. If he can stay fit, then, and Rashford can stay fit, then I think our front three is set for the season.
If you've got an on-form Rashford, Martial, and Antony, and they're in form, so they're all fit and they're all in top form, that is a scary situation to be up against if you're a defender. Because they're strong, they're quick, they're powerful, they all can score a goal. That will be one of the strongest front threes we've had for a long time, if they're fit and if they're playing well, if they've got the form.
Definitely. I think when they're fit and play, and they're playing and they're on form, especially the other two, like Rashford, Martial, like there's not many better in the league. Obviously, you have your Haaland there. He's in the world of his own. We're not even going to talk about him. He's in the world of his own. Like him and Mbappe are going to run football for years to come. But in terms of partnerships, there's not many better than Rashford, Martial in the league when they're both in form and they're both fit.
I think that's where, again, it comes back to just consistency, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Because we've had these two players a long, long time. And, it's just a case of they need to consistently play to the ability that they know they've got. And if they do, then, like you say, it'll be a progression in the right direction, mate.
100%. I absolutely agree. So, look, we've named our front three. I think, we think they should definitely be starting this weekend. But give me the rest of your starting 11 for Sunday against Everton. Your goalkeeper and your defence and your
Okay,
midfield.
I've gone De Gea because I think he'll play De Gea. I'd like to see Dubrovnik. I'd like to get him, get him a game. Has he been injured? Has he had a?
He has been injured. Yeah, he travelled yesterday, but he hasn't injured.
I would have thought he would have played yesterday. To be honest, I was surprised he didn't. But then I have seen rumours that he's not 100%. So I probably think in the league they'll put De Gea back in. Left back, I'm gonna go with Shaw. I like Malakia. I think he's a good player. I think he could be a great left back. Lacks a bit of experience. He's played a lot of minutes. Made a few mistakes. Luke Shaw, when he went away with England, on all accounts did well. And I've always said Luke Shaw, for me, again, if he can play consistently on his form, can be a fantastic fullback. We've seen it. We've seen it for. It was last season. It was the season before. It was a phenomenal fullback. So I think Luke Shaw sometimes needs a kick up the backside, and like he did when Telles first come in, and it transformed him. Now we've got Malakia. Hopefully that transforms him too. And it's only good because we've got squad depth. So it's a great thing. But yeah, I'd probably put Luke Shaw in at left back. Martinez obviously for me is going to be one of the number ones on my team sheet every week consistently. Yeah. I think now with the centre back pairings, it's Martinez and whoever. I don't think there's any other option, but he's starting for me.
He's like almost an extra midfielder, isn't he? He's like an almost extra midfielder the way he comes in with the ball and he takes the ball and gets play started.
Yeah. What he lacks in height, mate, he makes up in heart and determination, desire. For his size, he's very powerful. He can knock someone off a ball double the size of him. Like I say, it's a shame about his height, but you put him with the right partnership, which he was getting with Varane before. Obviously, Varane, we all know, he's prone to a bit of a knock in it. But yeah, for me, you've got to start Martinez. Hopefully, if Varane's fit, I'd play Varane because, like I've just mentioned, they was forming a nice partnership together. They was looking solid at the back. I think Lindelof the other day with Martinez looked a little bit shaky. I don't think that's a partnership that'll ever flourish. But again, if Varane's out, then we've no really other option, have we? So, but I'll go Varane. Hopefully he's fit. Hopefully them two can get back playing well together. Dalot, again, no other option, but I won't put anyone else there at this moment in time, even if we had a fit squad. I think the big one really is the midfield. I think I would go for Fernandes, Eriksen and Casemiro. Casemiro on his minutes, like we've mentioned. Eriksen, undoubtedly, the last month has probably been our best player. And Fernandes he blows hot and cold, but there's no one who can find the ball out of nothing like Bruno Fernandes, and he's got that ability to change a game. So yeah, I'd probably go with that. If not Casemiro, I think they'll put. I've got a feeling they'll put McTominay in. I wouldn't put McTominay in, but I've got a feeling they'll play McTominay and bench Casemiro. But if it was my 11, I'd give Casemiro a start. And we've already mentioned Rashford on the left, Anthony on the right, and Martial up front.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And look, we'll see what happens in that midfield. I think when the starting lineups are coming up, that's what we will be having a look out for. But yeah, I'll go with my 11. I'll go with De Gea, obviously. Dalot. Yeah, I've Shaw left back as well. I think one thing you have to do with him last year, because he's such a young player, is you can't overexpose him and haven't played too many games. So I think this type of game against Everton, full house at Goodison, for me personally, I'd start Shaw because he's more experienced. I think that you pick and choose what you do with these young left backs. You can't expose them. So for me, I'd go Shaw at left back. Again, if Varane is fit, which I don't think he will be, I think it's a bit too soon from that knock. It'll probably be Martinez and Lindelof, because obviously Maguire's out as well. I personally would go Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno. I know I said earlier, if you talked about against Man City and the midfield being naive, which it was, but I think Everton's midfield compared to City's midfield is night and day. And I think Eriksen and Bruno can control the midfield. against Everton. The fact Casemiro's in there as well. I think, look, for me, I think he can definitely provide enough defensive stability. If he can actually just slot in as a 6 and just sit to give Joe Lindelof that bit of protection in there, I think we'd be fine. And let the two lads just play. Even if you play Eriksen just as that 8 box to box, and then let Bruno be the 10. I think shape wise, that would be a lot better. And again, I mentioned my front three already. I went Anthony, Martial, and Rashford. So that's my team as well. So we've literally went for the exact same team. But look, I think maybe you're right. I think McTominay may actually start. But look, if he does, look, again, if you look at the midfield on Sunday, people gave McTominay a lot of slagging, but if you actually look at it, it was the two midfielders in front of him were the reason why he was getting overloaded. Like, if you be honest about it, like, there's two midfielders who had no defensive capability in there against a team who are going to have 70% of the ball.
Yeah.
So, like, I think people are probably a bit harsh on McTominay last week in terms of, like, his performance, because what else was he meant to do? He was 3 against 1 effectively in there in midfield. But yeah, look, that's our starting 11. Lee, can you give me your score prediction for Sunday's game?
Yep, I'm going to go 2-0, mate. And I'm going to go for Anthony cutting in on the left like he likes doing. By the way, he nearly did it twice against what do they call them? I can't think of what they call them. Ammonia,
yes, yeah. Like that,
yeah. He had 2 great. The keeper, to be fair, some of them left foot whip shots. What he did
was David De Gea-esque, that save.
Oh, they were worldies, mate. But you can see he's got that in the locker. He tries it every game, and I've got a feeling he'll pull one of them out. And if Martial starts up front, I've got a feeling Martial grabs one too. Just a quick one, and we mentioned it off her. I think if Varane doesn't start and Lindelof starts, I would change my score prediction to 2-1. But if Varane starts, it would be I'd go for 2-0.
So because Lee originally said 2-0, we're going to sting him here, and we're going to say 2-0 because I have a feeling Varane won't play, and I can't have him having the same score prediction as me. Luckily, I'm the one here on the computer, so I make the call. And Phil obviously isn't here tonight, but Phil has said 1-0 United, and I'm going to go 2-1 United. I'm going to stick to the same scoreline as last week. I think that's on the basis that Varane isn't fit. I think from set pieces, we're going to be vulnerable. With Cody and Tarkowski, I think they're going to be a massive threat, and I think we could be in a spot of bother without Harry Maguire or Varane in there from a set piece point of view. I think we could really struggle in that case. But there are score predictions. Now, usually we actually wrap up the podcast here on after a score prediction, but we're going to the last few minutes of the podcast, Lee. Now, I drummed this on you almost very, very last minute at this point, but I was actually in work today and talking to my manager in work, talking to other people in work. We were talking about United, and we having little debates like what team was better. There's the 1999 team of Manchester United, the treble winning team, or was it the 2008 Premier League and Champions League winning team? Now, just to set a bit of context around this, obviously both teams were world class. Obviously both teams won trophies. Both teams actually, they've done three-peats. So both teams have done, obviously they've done three-peats in the Premier League. But Lee, I'm going to bring I suppose, to the table, which team do you want to represent here? Because obviously you were at the football club during the 1999 team. You would have been in and around the club at that time. And obviously, the 2008 team, you would have, many of them players also would have been your teammates at Manchester United as well. So I'd be interested to get your point of views on both teams. Well, first of all, Lee, just give me your view on the 1999 team, first of all, and why you think maybe they may be the better team than the 2008 Manchester United team.
Right, it's so hard to debate this because, like I say, you just didn't nail the nail in and around 99. I was a young lad, and the team in 99 was my heroes. There was the people I looked up to, the people I aspired to be like. That was my team who I supported as a child. Like you just said, the 2008 team, I finished in 2005, and the vast majority of the lads I played with them, and there's some phenomenal names. It's so hard to me to even try and distinguish both teams. But if I was to go with one, and the daughter's just walked in, she's looking over my shoulder. If I was to go with one, I think it would have to be the 1999 squad. Just because, like I say, me growing up, you likes of your Beckhams, you remember York and Cole together. What a partnership they were. Neville, Dennis Irwin is my absolute hero. You know, I was a left back. That was what inspired me to be a left back. Was Dennis Irwin. Stam, Roy Keane, Beckham, Scholes, Butt, Solskjaer, Giggs, Sheringham. Every player you're talking about there are world class players. You know, and household names in that time in '99. Treble winning season, Nou Camp. Probably the most memorable game in modern history. In the final, you know, I can't think of any other game what sticks in my mind than when Sheringham and Solskjaer scored in the last few minutes. You know, it's for me, it's probably the best season United's had because they won the treble, and the way they won the treble and the match and everything about it for me it was phenomenal. So I probably got to go with the 99 squad, especially the 99 game, as opposed to the 2008 game, because although it was a massive achievement that we won, and the John Terry miss and what followed that, you know, all the drama following that, what I seem to remember is in the second half, the match kind of fizzled out a little bit. So I think the drama value of the Nou Camp in 99 too, and the match itself was a much better match. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 99.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with this one because obviously the 1919 was unbelievable. And like, look, they won the treble, and what they done in not only just that game, but like the semi-final in the FA Cup in dramatic circumstances. The amount of last-minute goals that team got was unbelievable. I look at the one of the reasons why I think this is such a hard debate. Like obviously the treble is unbelievable, but you look at the 2008 team as well. You mentioned that team, like the 99 team, had a lot of superstars. So did this 2008 team. This season, that season had a Ballon d'Or winning Cristiano Ronaldo. You had a front three of Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez. It was regarded the best front three in world football. You had Scholes, you had Rio Ferdinand, Nemanja Vidic, Gary Neville, Patrice Evra, Edwin van der Sar, who actually won Champions League at Ajax before coming to United as well.
Nani was in there, wasn't he?
You had Nani, you had Jason Park, Darren Fletcher, Owen Hargreaves. You had all international players in that squad as well. And also, if you look at that team that season, if you look at the Barclays Premier League era and you look at the most competitive Premier League era, you're probably talking from 2006 up to 2010. When you look at that top four of United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea, they were all really strong. The Premier League was probably at its peak in terms of like, if you're looking from 1 to 20, how strong the Premier League was. Like where you're from, Wigan were getting to the League Cup finals in and around that time as well. And if you look at that 08 team as well, they were actually robbed of a treble. Like we could have had 2 trebles. When you look at that Portsmouth game in the FA Cup, that was an absolute freakish situation. I look at these teams. I think, look, the 99 team for me, they get it because they won the treble. But if you look at the 2008 team, I think they're the closest team in the Premier League era to the 99 team.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking at Arsenal's Invincibles, if you're looking at Chelsea's 04-05 team, if you're looking at Arsenal's 98 team, if you're looking at City Centurions, in all the Premier League era, I think the only team that beats that 99 team is United's 2008 team. If you're looking at just one game of football and you're looking at just on pure footballing ability, the only team I think that would have a chance against United's 99 team would be United's 08 team. Because United's 08 team had a pretty mobile front three, a rock solid defence, by the way, which have the British clean sheet record. Van der Sar, Brown, Vidic, Ferdinand, and Evra, they have the British clean sheet record for the most consecutive games keeping a clean sheet. Like, I think it's so close, but obviously, if you look at the dramatic circumstances of United winning the treble and the way they've done it, I think obviously the 99 team does take it. But I think of every team in the Premier League area, you're talking best teams, I think the 2018 pushed them the closest, considering the competitiveness of the league. And if you consider that squad of players collectively as well, if you match player for player, It's very, very close.
I was just going to say, if you kind of match player for player, that's what I was thinking when you were speaking then, and trying to think of, the goalkeepers, the centre backs, the right backs. Do you have Tevez and Ronaldo, or do you have York and Cole? Or it's hard, isn't it? It's hard. It's a hard one, mate. It's a hard one.
I think Ronaldo gets in regardless because he won the Ballon d'Or. He scored 42 goals that season. Does Wayne Rooney get into that team? Like, you've Cole and York there. Like, what formation do you play?
Ronaldo was playing wide too then, though, wasn't he? You know what I mean?
We're playing 4-3-3, yeah.
Ronaldo, Beckham, which it's just good. The list goes on, doesn't it? It's who do you choose?
But this is why I'm saying this is so hard to do.
Dennis Irvin produced ever, two of the best left backs United's ever produced. It's they was both phenomenal. Let's be honest. It's there's an argument for either side, isn't there? You know what I mean? It's they were both two phenomenal teams. Like I say, you've got the likes of, a shout out to Wes Brown, who I believe started one of the Champions League finals, and I think he was on the bench in the 99. You know what I mean? You've got players like that who, was there on both. So, I mean, what a guy Wes is. I've known Wes a long time. I still speak to him over social media. He's a fantastic lad. And then I think he gets overlooked a lot, Wes, for what he did, because he was such a great player. And he was at United for such a long time, Tremendous lad with a tremendous career.
Yeah, he was. And also as well, if you look at how he came in and played right back and deputised for Gary Neville when Gary Neville got that bad injury in 2007-2008 season, and how he played so consistently at right back, and also that cross for Ronaldo in the Champions League final was a peach.
Yeah, fantastic. I think his ability got overlooked a lot, Wes, because he was great on the ball too. He was fantastic on the ball. He was fantastic in training, and some of the things he used to do in training with the ball, you'd think, this guy's not a defender. You know what I mean? He was really, really good, and to be in both them setups, playing, be part of that Champions League experience on both modern day history, really, and it's both they're the only two in our era what we've seen and what we won, and to be part of them both is a massive achievement.
Absolutely, and longevity speaks volumes. And look, you actually only stopped playing football a couple of years ago, so look, he's been around for a long time. Fair play to him. And yeah, he is a brilliant servant to the football club as well. But what we will do with this conversation is, we're going to bring this conversation over to Twitter. I'm going to put out a poll on the Talk the Devils Twitter page literally immediately after this show. And you guys in Twitter and in the comments here can decide which team was better. For me, I think the 99 team just edge it. But if you're talking one game of football, this is the way I look at it though, right? It's mad. Because if I look at the 99 team versus the 08 team, and the time the 99 team played football and the way refereeing was, 99 team win. Current day football, like modern day football, with the way the refereeing is now, I think the 08 team win. It's strange.
That's only because the 99 team would have 4 players sent off before half time.
Yeah, exactly. Roy Keane would be kicking Tevez when he spins him. Like, it'd be hilarious. Even though I mind seeing that anyway. But anyway,
both Keane scores would all be sent off within 30 minutes.
Scholes would be tackling Scholes, and 99 Scholes would be tackling 08 Scholes. It's like one of the fantasy FIFA things. But look, we will wrap that up there. We will. I will send that tweet out, and we'll get that poll out. And you guys who follow us on Twitter at Talk the Devils can decide that as well. And do you know what? We may actually talk about this in greater detail on the future podcast. We actually, myself, Phil and Lee, and I'll get Wayne on as well. And we may do the top maybe 5 best United seasons, not even teams, just top 5 best ever seasons. So we will discuss that off air, and we will organise that maybe in the next, I was about to say next international break, but that's the World Cup. We will pick a time and place where we will discuss that. So look, we will do that in due course. But thanks very much everyone for watching. Don't forget to check out our match reaction against Everton. That will be on immediately after the game. And look, hope everyone has a good weekend, and hopefully, most importantly, United get the 3 points. We do bounce back from the City defeat there. But thanks very much everyone for tuning in and who's listening on the replay on YouTube or on our audio platforms. Make sure you do like, share and subscribe. But until then, guys, thanks very much. Have a good weekend and come on the Reds.